today's class is nutrition. This was a topic that I covered a few months ago, but this is obviously a different group of students. There can be a few repeaters also. So I have changed my subject matter as much as I could, and I also changed the MCQs. But basically, the flow and the most important topics covered will be the same, because to repeat myself from the previous class, nutrition is not a very extensive domain as far as your part 1 exam is concerned. It only tests some very essential concepts, and those 10 to 15 concepts will be covered in this class. So to come back to this very important question, why nutrition is so important in the ICU, why we should be more bothered about the proteins and calories that we are giving to each patient. Poor nutrition is more common than we think, and it is also associated with very poor outcomes. So it's a very, very important aspect. ICU related fasting, keeping patients nil per oral, reduce oral intake, and also catabolic stress also significantly worsen the baseline malnutrition, which also exists in a large percentage of our patients. Poor nutrition also worsens wound healing and increases muscle wasting. Protein calorie deficit leads to a loss of lean body mass, weaker respiratory muscles, delayed weaning, and prolongation of mechanic ventilation. Any kind of stressful condition for the patient, which could include trauma, sepsis, burn, surgery, what that leads to is it leads to an increase lipolysis. So your fatty acids start breaking down to try to generate ketones, which act as a fuel for the brain, and also the muscles start breaking down into amino acids. So what happens to these amino acids? They get circulated to the liver, where the liver attempts to synthesize proteins, right? So your acute inflammatory proteins increase, and also it is transported back to the urea cycle. And also there is an attempt at gluconeogenesis. This contributes to hyperglycemia. Okay, and critical illness itself can cause a reduced utilization of glucose, a reduction in glycolysis, which can also contribute to hyperglycemia, and this eventually leads to a sort of vicious cycle. This is some basic myths versus facts when it comes to critical care nutrition. More calories are always better in ICU is a very common myth. Absolutely false. Remember that overfeeding causes hyperglycemia, increased carbon dioxide production, fatty liver, and a lot of associated problems. Another myth which was very prevalent in the early 90s was that you should always let the gut rest and withhold feeds in critically ill patients. Again, absolutely wrong. Remember, early enteral nutrition started within 24 to 48 hours. If the gut is functional, hemodynamically stable, is recommended according to all guidelines. Myth 4, nutrition can be delayed until the patient is stable. Absolutely not. Delayed feeding increases risk of malnutrition. Early nutritional support is always standard of care. Subjective global assessment is another important scoring system. I think if you just remember the name, that's good enough, but these are the components. So it includes the weight change in the past 6 months, the dietary intake, GI symptoms, and also the functional assessment. Okay, so this is the part which includes the history, and it also includes certain parameters of physical examination. Okay, so you can just grossly remember the aspects of subjective global assessment. So the Nutrix score was the first ICU specific tool developed to identify critically ill patients who are most likely to benefit from aggressive nutritional therapy. Basically, it tells you the nutritional risk of the patient, okay, rather than looking at malnutrition alone. So like I said, a low score, that is 0 to 5, points towards a lower nutrition risk, while a higher score points towards a higher nutrition risk, or points towards patients who are more likely to benefit from early and adequate nutrition. Again, another factual question based on the M-Nutrix score. Can you tell me what the M-Nutrix score is for this patient? I just told you guys the components, just to help you practice and remember the components. They probably won't ask you to calculate it in the exam, but you should know the components. So this patient has an M-Nutric of 8, right? So an age of more than 75 gives a score of 2, and Apache 2 of 20 to 27 gives a score of 2. So far more than 10 gives a score of 2, and 2 comorbidities gives a score of 1. And also hospital to ICU interval gives a score of 1. Again, 2 factual questions. I'm not going too much into the details of these. Okay. This is something you have to answer. Remember that control shock, improving perfusion, don't withhold feeds, always start trophic nutrition. Okay. Trophic nutrition can have different definitions. It could mean, basically it means a low output feed, right? So something ranging from 10 to 15 ml per hour, where you're giving not more than 500 kilocalories, right? But if you have escalating shock or worsening ischemia, these are always red flags. So what are the advantages of enteral nutrition? Why are we so for enteral nutrition? It is less expensive. It is obviously more physiological. It is associated with lesser metabolic complications such as electrolyte abnormalities, hyperglycemia, stimulates function of the gut, and also preserves mucosal integrity. It has few disadvantages, like obviously it requires an intact and functioning GI tract. Okay, you might have some complications related to the procedure, like putting in a Ryle's tube. Rarely you can have pulmonary aspiration, malabsorption, or feeding intolerance. But by and large, it is much, much better than any other forms of nutrition. Do you remember in your first year, all the cycles that we read? What was that one substrate which was there for everything, like starting from your Krebs cycle to glycolysis? You can go back and see those substrates. So your ultimate important substrate for everything is thiamine. Okay, thiamine, which gets converted to whatever, pyruvate, pyrophosphate, etc., etc. But thiamine is so important. It's so important for glucose utilization. So important for glycolysis. There in all those pathways. Okay, so just from a very simplistic point of view, it is like without that substrate, none of these pathways would work. Ultimately, you need these pathways to work effectively in your critical ill patients, right? You need a good balance between glycolysis, glycogenolysis, etc., right? So there you need that substrate. That's why it's so important.